Hey guys, Tyler here, and thanks for checking out this video. Prepatch is finally here for Shadowlands, and we have a lot to talk about, so let's get started.
Mr. Eggplant presents.
So thanks for checking out the video, guys, and before we get too far into it, I did want to talk about some of the quick changes and updates from BFA to the pre-patch that you'll want to take note of. So we got some new abilities, some of our talent changes, some of our focus cost changes, so that's what we're going to chat about right here. So first of all, we get Eyes of the Beast. It's not really going to be anything you're going to worry about. It's more of like an RP style of ability. But we have Scare Beast comes back. That is just a fear that can only be used on beasts, so it'll be good in PvP situations against, let's say, Beast Mastery Hunters. Misdirection saw a change, so if I use that here on my pet, it gives me the full 30-second duration, so we don't have to immediately start trying to pump out the damage. And as soon as I start doing damage, that's when I have the 8 seconds of complete threat redirection, which is really nice. We also have Trank Shot coming back, so we can finally get rid of that with a Purge. We can get rid of one Enrage and one Magic Effect. And then at level 54, it does actually give us focus back if we do succeed. And then as for marksman changes themselves, we got Binding Shot baseline, which will be nice in PvE and PvP for Mythic Plus in particular, and for trying to kite people in PvP. And then we also have the bread and butter, which is Kill Shot. So the careful aim actually changed. We no longer have the 80-20 zone, where we do more damage with aim shots above 80 and below 20. So now we only have that above 70. So to compensate, we have Kill Shot, which is once again our execute that's usable below 20% health. And talents that were changed, Master Marksman was one of those. Now it is a 15% of damage done bleed whenever you crit. Then we also have Careful Aim. Like I said earlier, it's only above 70%, not the 80-20 zone. Streamline was switched a little bit, so now it just increases the damage of rapid fire by 15%, and then whenever you use rapid fire, the next aim shot is going to cast 30% faster. And then Lock and Load was changed, so now it was 5% chance to trigger it, and now it's 8. So those are pretty much the changes to talents. Ability wise, we didn't see too many changes other than our aim shots focus cost is now up to 35 from 30, and then also our arcane shot / chimera shot is up from 15 to 20. So as for the stat priority for the pre-patch for 9.0 for Shadowlands, we have weapon DPS being your #1 priority, followed by agility, then either mastery crit or crit mastery, depending on what you want to run. We are going to rely heavily on crit moving into Shadowlands, so that might be something you look into. Then versatility, and finally haste. So unfortunately, essences have not gone away in the pre-patch. That is something we're going to have to worry about. We've got a pure single target essence build, and then we also have an AoE one that you guys can work with. So first, for pure single target, there's a couple of options, and I know that a lot of hunters were running with Vision of Perfection Major. Unfortunately, with the changes to Master Marksman, that is going to be one of the worst majors that you can run with now, because we have a bit of a focus issue, particularly in the true shot window, which is what makes that really so good, because it gives you true shots. So you can run with Condensed Life Force, which comes out of Eternal Palace. It does have a long cooldown, though, unfortunately. It is a 3-minute cooldown. So because of that, most people will be running with either Breath of the Dying from Oldham, or with the World Vein Resonance from Islands, because it's just so much raw stats, especially if you have multiple people in your group running with that. And then as for the minor for that build, you would run with Vision of Perfection, because it is still good as a minor, just terrible as a major. You can run with Focusing Iris as a minor if you're looking for a little bit extra haste in your build. Conflicting Strife is always good, and then Crucible kind of sneaks its way in there. As for an AoE build for essences, I would run with Focusing Iris exactly the way I do currently in my Mythic Plus setup, or World Vein, particularly, like I said, if you have several people that are running with it, because the more the merrier on that. As for your minor, Vision of Perfection is still great as a minor. Breath of the Dying, because that thing is OP.GG, it is amazing. And then also Conflict and Strife. So just like essences, Azerite traits are still in the game for the pre-patch, so we still need to continue to collect those and get the right ones for our spec. The ones you want to be looking for, you want at least 2 in the rhythm. I prefer to get as many of those as possible, so up to 3. Then Unerring Vision, We also have Focus Fire. You probably want to run with one of those or one Surging Shots just to round out your build. And then Overwhelming Power is another one that you really want to look for on your Marksman Hunter. So looking ahead to the talents portion of this video, we're going to start off with single target. So at level 15, we're going to run with Master Marksman. So they changed it since BFA. It is now no longer giving us free Arcane/Chimera shots. Now it is a 15% bleed whenever you crit, over 6 seconds. At level 25, you want to run with Careful Aim. Since it's no longer an 80-20 zone, it's just a 70% and above to get that 50% extra damage on your aim shots. If there's any AoE whatsoever in the fight though, Explosive Shot becomes far superior. At level 30, you can pretty much choose what you want, but for most raid situations, you're going to want to run with Natural Mending. At level 35, I recommend Steady Focus, just because that raw 7% haste is going to be huge. It's going to be the biggest it'll ever be throughout the expansion at the beginning, since we need so many secondary stats and we just don't have them yet. As long as you're casting those in sets of 2, you can constantly keep that 7% haste buff up, and we do have to cast quite a few steady shots because we are kind of focus starved so far. At level 40, that's pretty much something that you want to choose yourself. For me, it's either between Post Haste or Born to be Wild. Post Haste is really good if you need to get out of roots. Other than that, I would probably run with Born to be Wild just to lower the cooldown of some of those movement abilities. At level 45, I suggest Double Tap. Double Tap is just going to be a lot of damage that you can put out in burst situations, because that's really what Marksman is, at least right now. It works well in AoE and single target, and you want to use that on cooldown. And level 50, I would pick Calling the Shots. It's still the better of the 3, even with the buff to lock and load. But in certain situations, I could see where all 3 would be very viable. As for your AoE build, otherwise known as a build you're probably going to be running for Mythic Plus, I would still suggest at level 15 taking Master Marksman, the same reasons as we chatted about for single target. At level 25, I would suggest taking Explosive Shot. It does so much damage for its focus cost and has a fairly low cooldown. At level 30, just like before, I would highly suggest taking Natural Mending. It's really just the one you want to pick for PvE situations. At level 35, if there's 2 targets, I would take Chimera Shot. Otherwise, I would pick up Steady Focus, just because that 7% haste, you're going to be casting your steady shots all the time anyway, particularly at the beginning of the expansion when we don't have a lot of haste. So that 7% pocket haste that you can almost always control and keep up, that is going to be a big deal. So one of those 2 would be what you want to grab. At level 40, I would still pick Post Haste if you need to get out of a route. Otherwise, Born to be Wild is probably something you want to run with, so that really just depends on the fight or the dungeon. For level 45, I would pick Double Tap as well, for the same reasons for single target. And then for level 50, Volley is king there. Volley does an insane amount of damage, and while you do have that up, you want to treat it exactly like you would in a true shot, where you just go from aim shot, rapid fire, aim shot, and ignore those precise shot procs, because you do gain trick shots during the entire time of Volley. So now that we've looked at talents for single target or for AoE, I did want to give you guys some really quick tips on how to get the most out of some of these selections before we get into our rotation. So first and foremost, if you are running with Steady Focus, you want to make sure and always use Steady Shot in sets of 2. Because when you use Steady Shot in sets of 2 with that ability, you do get that 7% haste buff. You want to have that up as much as possible in fights, because secondary stats are going to be very important, particularly at the beginning of the expansion, and especially for Marksman, since we are going to be a very slow spec that just hits really hard. From there, if you're running with Careful Aim, so they got rid of the 80-20 zone and dropped it to just the above 70%. So while you're in True Shot, while using the Careful Aim trait, you want to make sure and ignore all procs of precise shots from casting your aim shot, because they're not free anymore with Master Marksman changes. So it's most important for you to get as many aim shots out as possible during that True Shot window. As well as if you're using Double Tap, be sure, just like in BFA, precast Double Tap with 10 seconds left on the pull timer. That way you already get that on cooldown. And then if you're above 70% health, or the boss's health is above 70% health, make sure and use it on aim shot. And if they're at 70% or below, be sure and use it on rapid fire. And finally, if you're running with the talent Streamline, be sure and cast your rapid fires before you cast your aim shots. That way you can take advantage of that 30% faster cast time. Now comes to the tricky part of the video, which is going to be our rotation, otherwise known as like our ability priority system, since we really don't have a true blue rotation anymore and really haven't since Legion. So first and foremost, you want to make sure and use your kill shot on cooldown, because kill shot's only up 20% of a fight, but it does insane amounts of damage and it costs next to no focus. It only costs 10 focus with a 6-second cooldown, so you're going to want to spam that as much as possible. You want to make sure and don't allow your aim shots to cap on charges. So it has 2 charges. You want to constantly keep those rolling, the cooldown rolling on that, but make sure that you're not wasting your precise shot procs, which will be either Chimera shot if you're running with that talent, or Arcane shot for your average hunter. From there, make sure that you're using rapid fire and double tap on cooldown. Double tap, of course, is if you are running with that talent. And of course, like I said earlier, if you are running with double tap, be sure and use it on aim shot above 70% and rapid fire below 70%. So after your rapid fire and your double tap, you want to make sure you use your true shot on cooldown. Fortunately, not as good of a cooldown as it was in BFA. In fact, it's not even close, and there's a bunch of issues with it. But for right now, just make sure and use it on cooldown. And if you're above that 70%, be sure and ignore your precise shot procs. If you're below 70%, go ahead and use the precise shot procs even during the true shot. From there, make sure that you keep that steady focus, 7% haste buff up. Make sure and casting it in 2s if you are running with that, which I think a lot of marksman hunters will be. And then, of course, don't let your focus cap and dump any extra focus. I know that's funny right now, trust me, but we'll get to this point in the expansion at some point. And be sure and don't let your focus cap and dump with Arcane and Chimera shots. As for the AoE priority for our abilities, first and foremost, you will be running with Explosive Shot and Volley because they do so much damage and are super cheap focus-wise. So be sure and use those 2 cooldowns on cooldown. From there, particularly when you're in your Volley, be sure you ignore those precise shot procs because you gain trick shots during volley, so you want to make sure and get as many aim shots and rapid fires out as possible. And be sure that you have an aim shot ready and rapid fire is off cooldown before you cast your volley. From here, be sure and use true shot on cooldown exactly like single target. The same way goes for double tap. And if their enemy is above 70% health, use it on aimed. If it's below 70% health, use it on rapid fire. And then from there, be sure and use your precise shot procs on your multi-shot if there are 3 or more enemies there. If not, go ahead and use those on Chimera or your Arcane shot. And from there, it's pretty much business as usual. Be sure and use your aim shots and rapid fire when you do get your trick shots up for cleave. So when there are 3 targets there, be sure and multi-shot and then rapid fire, or multi-shot and then aim shot. That way they will all bounce. And then from there, of course, if you are running with the steady focus talent, keep the steady focus buff up if taken at all times. You want to have at least like 90 to 95% uptime on that 7% haste buff. So thanks for checking out this video, guys. Be sure and subscribe to me here on YouTube if you enjoyed it, and be sure and leave me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. This will be a living, breathing video, so I will make any changes to it. And of course, it's only good for the pre-patch / the very beginning of Shadowlands, so if you are watching it afterwards, things may have changed. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure also to follow me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/Mr. Eggplant. I'm going to hopefully be streaming all of my raids throughout the expansion over there, so be sure and check that out if you want to hang out. So thank you guys for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.